On this episode, you really went into talk about residual versus intelligent haunting.
Anything without being an extremely plausible answer that it's AI.
And I think that lends credence, really, to the paranormal world, right?
Whether you believe or not, I don't care.
You're not investigating some haunted house.
You don't have to have Hollywood movie cameras and special effects. You can do it all with your phone.
Raise your glass to mysteries, cocktails and conspiracies. Dive into these histories, cocktails and conspiracies. Raise your glass to mysteries, cocktails and conspiracies. Uncover those anomalies, cocktails and conspiracies.
It's said that every minute, 115 souls leave this world behind. Some go quietly, some go violently, but every one of them leaves an echo, a footprint stamped on the veil between the living and the dead. If every death left behind a ghost, we'd be swimming in them. You'd see them on your morning commute. They'd be standing beside you on line for coffee. They'd be everywhere. But they're not. They only appear in flashes, in shadows, in whispers caught on static, which raises a question that most people never think to ask. Is being a ghost a choice? Tonight, we're joined by someone who spent nearly 2 decades standing on that line between the seen and the unseen. A man who's investigated the haunting saloons of Tombstone, Arizona, and the private homes where the past refuses to stay buried. He's not a thrill seeker. He's a firefighter, a paramedic, and a lifelong student of the unknown. Because sometimes the most haunted places aren't the ones you visit, they're the ones you carry with you. This is Cocktails and Conspiracies, and tonight we share a drink with our guest, paranormal investigator Dan O'Connor. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you for having me.
Dan, you're a retired fire chief and a flight paramedic out of Arizona, 27 years in emergency services and almost 20 years now as a paranormal investigator. You've been a part of the Arizona branch of TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society, and you've worked some of the Southwest's most iconic haunts, including the Birdcage Theater and Tombstone. What's really interesting to us is how you seem to balance both of those worlds. You've got this grounded scientific mindset from years in the field, but also this genuine curiosity and openness to things that we quite can't explain. So to kind of kick us off here, I wanted to ask you, how does a fire chief and a flight medic end up chasing ghosts?
I think the question is, how does a ghost hunter become involved in the fire service? Because I was born in 1969. My first recollection of any paranormal interest was when I was it was either second or third grade. So we're talking about 75, 76, 77 in through there. And I remember it's my longest memory I had. There was a ghost book in our school library, which looking back on now for that time, I thought that's kind of a little weird. And I saw it and I'm like, I don't need to look at dinosaurs. Everyone loved Star Wars back then, but this is what captivated my attention. Wow, this is a picture of a ghost on the cover. And I couldn't tell you about any word in that book, what it said, but I remember that book and I remember that cover, and that started it off. I mean, during that time, that was the heyday of In Search Of as well. And people of my age, that's their gateway. At my age, I was like, hey, this is Mr. Spock on a TV show. I want to watch this. And it was Mr. Spock talking about the Loch Ness Monster, talking about the Amityville Horror, talking about the Nazca Lines. So it was right in my wheelhouse. And again, at that age, it just planted those seeds for a lifelong interest in anything 14 like that. So, the fire department thing was, well, I'm not going to make any money doing this. I got to do something. And what kid doesn't want to ride on a fire truck? So that's how that started.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And In Search of is funny because it's an older TV show, but I think so much of it still kind of carries over to today. I remember just a couple years ago, I had binged the
Hmm.
entire series. I despise watching anything that hasn't been like upscaled at this point because TVs just make it look so
Yes.
much worse now. But I couldn't not watch it. I was just so hooked into seeing it. Outside of the fact
Well, yeah.
Spock, right? You know, seeing Mr. Spock on
Yeah,
the TV was always
exactly.
great too, but iconic. So the way you landed on today's show is kind of funny. We had a call to action after we did some of our Halloween episodes over the past couple weeks, and Tim has been utterly fascinated by the idea of ghost hunting. He's talked to me about this forever. And probably by the time I turn the mic over to him, I'm not going to be able to speak again for the rest of the podcast because he has so many things he's wanted to talk about here. And he called it out. Is there anybody out there that has done this before that wants to talk about it? And Dan, you emailed right away. I think the day after the episode dropped, and you said you've been listening to the show for a long time, and we appreciate that. But that you have all this experience and you're willing to answer our questions. And so we were kind of bantering back and forth in some emails, and you even emailed me after another episode too. And I
Yeah,
said,
yeah, you
stop,
did.
save it all. Now we're going to talk about it live because there's so much to kind of get through. So number one, we appreciate you reaching out and being willing to really share your expertise. And number two, Mr. Phillips, your calls were answered. Your dreams came
Oh my
through.
God.
We have somebody that's got tangible experience in this. So I am going to turn the floor over to you for really that first kickoff question here into this ghost hunting world.
Listen, I remember before we recorded the very first episode, months, maybe even a year before we recorded the first episode, when you were launching the website, and we were not really sure what it was going to be. We knew that there might be a podcast element, weren't really sure. We were kind of talking about blogs on the website, and I said to you, dude, I will head up the paranormal section of it. That is my wheelhouse. It's my end all be all. I love it. It's my life, right? So like, Dan, having you here and be able to talk to somebody who has real life experience of actually going out and doing paranormal investigations, I could die a happy man. So thank you so much for coming on. Listen, we haven't even gotten into a real conversation yet. You're already a friend of the show. You're gonna be back many times because there's no way we're gonna be able to cover it all today. I'm excited. Let's
go.
So, one of the things that always kind of strikes me is I've never investigated anything paranormal. We just released an episode, I think it might have been last week, where we kind of shared some personal experiences and stories. And I've had some, I'd call them interesting experiences, but nothing, that I would say is, really evidence or proof of the paranormal. I've always wanted to, but I just haven't had that experience yet. And so most people's experience with the paranormal, if they haven't had an experience themselves, are stories, right? Your classic ghost stories, or watching things on TV, right? Ghost hunters being the most famous one to ever exist. And so, most people are looking at it from the outside in. And so they've never had that experience. They don't have that evidence. What's some of the craziest experiences or evidence that you've experienced in doing this over the 20 years? Like something that just, maybe not even necessarily wild, but something that was like, hey, that was really weird. I have some evidence to back it up. Kind of talk about some of your favorite experiences.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Number one, everybody enters in this community basically at the level that you just described, right? They have an interest, maybe had some weird things go on, but it piqued their interest or they want to know the answers or whatever. Your story is not unique at all. The question that I would ask somebody first is, do you have more paranormal experience than just this situation or whatever you're telling me about? Because most people will dismiss it right out of there as, oh, it was a trick of the light. Oh, I was half asleep. Oh, it was a dog outside barking that I mistook. What if it wasn't? What if you're more in tune with the paranormal than you think, but you're just more willing to dismiss it off for whatever reason? Is it you don't want to deal with it, you got work on your mind, family, whatever, and you're just like, I ain't got time to think about that, so your mind just puts up a filter. I would think that the paranormal is around us, and it's just usually dismissed out. That was just a weird little tangent. The to disappoint you from the get-go, ghost hunting, paranormal investigation, whatever you want to call it, is not like it is on TV, obviously.
Right.
They most of
Of
those
course.
teams, most of those shows film for hours. And a lot of those times they get nothing. They get nothing because it's nothing happens on cue. I don't care how many times people walk through with these little things that go zippity zappity and little machines and saying, "Speak to me if I'm here." You're on their time every time. You cannot make it happen. If you could, everyone who wanted to see a ghost would be able to do it like that. So there's an entertainment value to those shows. You have to make something that's going to get ratings,
Absolutely.
that people are going to want to watch, that's exciting, and you throw in some little haunted, scary type music in the background. And, I'll tell you that no matter what, to most all these investigations happen at night just because honestly, it's better entertainment. If there's ghosts, they're around 24/7. Hunting
Right.
them during the day is not
Right.
exciting and it's not fun, but they should be there by the same instance. So a lot of it is really just sitting around wondering, well, what time should we wrap this up? We've been here 12, 13, 14 hours, whatever. And then something stupid
Wow.
happens. You're like, oh, we got to stay. So a lot of that stuff is not exciting and it doesn't bear any fruit. More times than not, you walk away going, yeah, we got 2 or 3 things we want to look at. And the rest is like, well, it's just dead air. It's just people talking in the dark, asking stupid questions. But those 3 things that you
Right.
catch, sometimes you can't explain. We had a case where we were invited to Fort Huachuca, an active Army military base, which is it was about 20 years ago. That's a big deal. They had to receive Department of Defense. Okay, it was a big deal, and they
Wow.
called us in the pitch black. Some of those buildings at Fort Huachuca date back to the 1800s, where the cavalry soldiers were there and stuff. They would hang deserters in one of their warehouses, and that floor with the
Mhm.
trap door for them to drop through is still there. So that's one of the places where we had set
Wow.
up. And it was a long rectangular building, probably 100 yards by maybe 30 yards wide, big building that had been added onto and whatnot. Your question was, what did I see, have I seen that really, stood out? You'll hear in these
Mhm.
shows that people say, well, I think I saw a shadow figure or I saw something. And again, there's no lights on. The IR lights on these cameras that you see on these shows or the night vision device, whatever, you don't really see. It's just a very dull, violet colored ring of lights
Mhm.
usually. So it's dark. You will fall over things. You will walk into walls. And it's for lack of better terms, it's like being in a fire. You don't see nothing. That being
Mhm.
said, when someone says, I saw something that was blacker than the black I was looking at, I know what they're talking about because that is the one thing I saw where it's like, I have nothing for this. I have nothing for this human like figure that, granted, at 25, 35, 40 feet down the aisle, yeah, was it next to me? No. But I'll tell you that after I saw this, and one of my teammates was like, yeah, I think I saw something out of the corner of my eye too. I'm not sure. The flashlights come on, everything
Mhm.
comes on, and you look for things that your brain might matrix as something else. There was nothing humanoid shaped down there. There was nothing moving. There was just nothing that can account for a blacker than black human like figure in that dark of night. Was it paranormal? I don't know. I don't know. But it wasn't normal. It wasn't something that I've ever seen since. So, you know,
I think one of the big, I guess, not cases, but couples that have really kind of taken the space by storm right off the Conjuring movies are Ed and Elizabeth Warren. And so I think there's this perception now because of those movies that when you have a haunting, you call somebody out. I'm curious your experience with that. I mean, you said you were invited in to go check this place out. Is that generally how you know, how your association with taps has really worked, where you're getting called up by somebody to check out a haunting to help it, or is it more just like sort of self exploratory, where you're hearing about something, you really want to check it out because of a general
Right. And
interest?
so the correct answer is both. Uh, 20, 25 years ago when taps was really kicking off the ground and it was something special, the Ghost Hunters TV show. If you think about it, the TV show Sightings came before it, but it was like almost a modern day In Search Of, and it was a little more tabloidy, right? You got the feeling that maybe there was a little sensationalism in there, whereas In Search Of was just, here it is, here's the show, there you go. So you had sightings. Then you had that next wave, that next generation that would be ghost hunters with taps. And the world is a different place today than it was back then. Back then, the thing to do was to be associated with taps because everybody knew the name after about a season and a half, 2 seasons. They were the benchmark. They were doing things that nobody else had done, at least on TV or in the entertainment field. And how they did things and the disciplines they used, that set the standard. And if you had the endorsement of being a TAPS family member, you used all their techniques. You used, you didn't come from the hip. You had these set rules and parameters that the TAPS guys used because they were good. They were tried and true. So you had that stamp, and people looked for that because again, early mid 2000s, 2004, 2005, no one talked about this stuff. You were the crazy guy at work at the water cooler or whatever. No one talked about it, and it wasn't accepted like it is these days. So very quickly you learned that a lot of people had questions, had fears, had situations, had encounters, whatever. There was, what are you going to do? Call the police? So when this type of organization came out, that's what people looked for. And the way it worked back then was you went to the TAPS website, you looked for the state that you resided in, you clicked on that, that would bring up the endorsed teams. Some teams like California, whatever, a lot of teams. Some of the smaller states, just one. And you would submit a form of, hey, this is where I live, here's my name, here's the activity, whatever. And we would contact them saying, okay, we've got your request, we've got your story. And that would basically turn into, okay, we really want you guys to come over to our house, our business, our whatever, and take a look. So that's how that ball kind of got rolling. There's also places in any state that have the whatever you want to call it, have the folklore, have the whispered talks about, hey, this place is haunted. Look at that place. I heard that some woman fell down the elevator shaft, whatever. So maybe you would be a little bit more proactive in going to those places saying, hey, us geeks, we got this weird ghost hunting thing. Can we come in with our little cameras and stuff? So there was some proactivity there. So it was both. As the TV show went on in seasons, the outside people initiating contact also grew. So, and now today it's just different. Now you don't need that stamp of approval. You don't need that TAPS logo, that TAPS name on the side of your shirt, whatever,
Sure.
because it's just grown to something completely different. Now we've got these high definition phones that can do anything, and people get a ghost hunting meter and a phone and they go out and they do it. They don't, it's a different world now. And they'll see what they want to, but the
Right.
difference is they'll see what they want to see, and they, too much of one thing is just the same as not enough as one thing, right? If you're convinced you're going to go out and see a ghost, everything that happens is going to be the direct result of a ghost being there. If you don't believe in ghosts, every little thing that happens is going to be coincidental. So a lot of the stuff that's out now, it's not, it's at one extreme or the other. I want clicks, so everything's going to be a ghost. I want to disprove it because of my whatever, my beliefs, whatever, because of clicks. There's no ghost. You've got to be in that center part to where it can be a ghost, it can be a dog, it can be a spoon, whatever, causing that causing that evidence.
Right.
And it's hard to do these days because the attention span and just the way the world is now, it's not where it was. And I mean, please,
Well, it's going to make it
it's
worse.
worse.
Yeah.
It's already
Yeah.
over. You can't now look at a video on anything of a flying saucer, of a ghost, of Bigfoot, anything without being an extremely plausible answer that it's AI. So there's no evidentiary thing that we're going to come up in this day and age that'll stand on its own two legs like it did 20 years ago, because you have this factor of you can do anything now, again, with your own phone. You don't have to have Hollywood movie cameras and special effects. You can do it all with your phone. And that
With
it,
an app.
it's it's really going to work, I think, to the detriment of the way that the old school people did it with sensors and throwing down flour on the floor to see if there's going to be footsteps, just taking random pictures, seeing if anything shows up. All that's done with because of technology and because of AI. So it's a double-edged sword
That's
because
yeah.
it's more acceptable now to see, hey, I think I've had some paranormal experiences, which is great to not be laughed out of the room. It's harder because your job as someone who documents the paranormal, it's not there anymore. It just can't be done.
Yeah, it's changing. A lot of
Yeah,
things change with
exactly.
that
Yeah.
for sure.
We talked about that with the Boogosphere, I think, right? I mean, I remember talking about, hey, we have video of this thing flying, right? Why do I still find myself not believing that video? It's clear video footage, but video, Dan, to your point, can very easily be faked by my 13-year-old son could do it, right? With the AI apps that he uses on his phone. So that's a really good point. I wanted to ask you, do you ever just get scared doing it? Right? Do you ever just get really creeped out in the middle of an investigation? Because when I was younger, right, I never did any kind of formal investigating, but we would go check out just things kids would do, right? An abandoned mansion. We went and checked out the abandoned Seaview Hospital on Staten Island, right? Granted, I was a kid, I'm a teenager. I'm still kind of a big kid, but I remember getting a little creeped out and being a little scared, and I always just wondered, was there ever been times where you just kind of like, whoa, man, like this is kind of freaking me out right now?
No, because no.
No,
Well,
Brave man,
no, no, no. It's
brave
got nothing to
man.
do with that. Think back on this logically. You guys have looked into the paranormal, the 4T and stuff to some degree, or else you wouldn't have this show. I want each of you to come up with just one, only one ghost story, folklore, whatever, where somebody was hurt or killed from the ghost.
It's a
Very
valid
true.
point.
What
That's a
freaks
very
you
valid
out
point.
is
I
basic
agree with
human
that.
nature. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm in a strange location that is 100% blacked out dark. That can play with your mind.
Yeah.
But again, put away the movies, put away the TV shows, the books, everything. Just give me one story, each of you, where the ghost has actually caused physical harm. If you put that thought into your head, it is of a relaxing thought. And it's
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, never
That's a
thought
good
about it
point.
like that. Yeah.
And I find myself even becoming more comfortable with it. Actually, I think Shane, I told you about this the other night. We didn't talk about this on the pod. So Dan, right now I have some bruised ribs. I coach baseball. I got walloped with the line drive, and so I'm laying in my recliner, and it's, I don't know, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and I'm not falling asleep. I am wide awake. I'm not in any kind of dream state, and I hear my front door opening. There's no other explanation for what that sound was. It's my front door opening. And I, with my bruised ribs, just immediately like flip off the couch, scream in severe pain, run into my office where we're recording right now, and the door's locked, the storm door's locked, and I turn around and I take a look at this background behind me, and I kind of push the background, and I'm like, okay, it could have been the background moving as well, but whether it was the door or the background, what made that move? Why would it make such it was a startling noise, right? Everybody in my house is asleep. There's nobody around at all. And so I'm a little creeped out. I'm a little weirded out. And I'm just like, whatever. I mean, if that was something paranormal, that's pretty damn cool that it's happened in my house. And I hobbled back to the recliner and sat down. And I was watching the newer episodes of Ghost Hunters that Jason Hawes releases on YouTube because I'm a psychopath and I'm obsessed. So, yeah, I find myself, becoming a little bit more comfortable with it. And I like to think if I ever do go out on an investigation that I would keep my wits about me, but I'm not sure, man. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, I have the opportunity to do it one day, and who knows? Maybe I'll fly out to AZ and we'll
Dude,
do it
come
together.
out. There's so much haunted stuff out here. I mean, just in a little town like Tombstone that has its touristy aspect to it, the places that you don't know are the best places. The homes that were built,
Right, right, right.
the private residences that were built in the 1800s and stuff. Where the real Boot Hill is, not the place where you go and the real Boot Hill. Yeah, come out. Come out. You got sponsor
Right.
money. Make them pay. Come out. You can stay with
God, I would
me.
love it.
That's
Oh,
half.
not enough
That's
yet.
half the cost right there. But I would say
We're gonna make it happen one day,
well,
my friend.
it's an open invitation. I would say that you actually have gone on a real ghost hunt because you went out with a group of friends with the intention of doing an investigation. So that's different insofar as when you're think of your two different stories there. You're laying on your couch, you hear something. That's different from being with a group of people looking for that specific type of activity. Because one, you have that mindset of we're here specifically to do this. The other one, you're just laying on the couch and stuff happens. So with your brain, I believe that factors in a different level of perception. Your couch ghost story would be the one that I would stick with because, I mean, can you prove you were awake? No, probably not. Are there people going to say, well, he's probably half asleep and in pain, so his mind was doing weird things? Yeah, you're going to have to throw that out as evidence. But just like with the flying saucers thing with the Nimitz encounter, you can't discredit somebody's what they experienced and what they witnessed and the credibility of what they're coming with you just because you think, oh well, it's a flying propane tank. It was a weather balloon. It's not moving that fast. All that's great. All that's great. But here's someone saying, this is what I experienced. I'm in no position, no matter what I'm looking at, to dismiss an experience because I also think that everyone's going to perceive it differently. If the three of us were in one room and something paranormal happened, the three of us, I believe, are going to see three different things. I may see a demon. Tim, you may see an alien. And Shane, you might see, who knows? You might see nothing. Say, and we're all next to each other. So I think that your openness and your beliefs and everything, I think that factors in your witness accounts. Somebody who's very religious, a lot of things that if you look at the reports, they see it as angels and devils. Is an angel and devil the same thing as a ghost and a demon? Is that the same thing that as an alien? Who knows? It might be. You can't really get
Yeah.
pigeonholed into one subject because it all plays in. Is this ghost come out of a flying saucer and it's a ghost and there are people seeing it manifest as Sasquatch? You gotta look at everything. Because I'll tell you, and I think I told this to you guys previously, if someone ever comes on and said, this is the answer, I know it, that interview's done. Because if someone had the concrete
Right.
answers, there'd be nothing to investigate. It would be like, hey, this is metal. Yeah, you know what? It's metal. You're right. Let's move on. There's no answers for anything flying saucer, cryptid. It's speculation. It's people doing for hundreds of years what we three are doing now. We're talking about folklore and trying to figure out what it is. No one has those answers. No one's answers right and no one answers wrong. It's the beauty of the subject.
It's fascinating because you don't even realize what you did. And this is a nice segue. As we're recording this, our next episode comes out tomorrow. We're recording on a Wednesday. Episodes drop every Thursday, and we have Darren King on, and we talk a lot about consciousness and perception and the anomalous. We touch on a lot of that and why sometimes people perceive, as you said, Dan, aliens versus ghosts versus the afterlife. And my initial thought, the initial piece that I wanted to bring up was a nice segue from where you were going, and you kind of expanded upon that. So, for those watching on YouTube and Spotify that have liked and subscribed, check out Darren's episode as well if you haven't already, because this is a nice parlay into this. But Dan, you had said something to me offline that has stuck with me and that I really wanted to bring up. In watching your episode with Glenn, and Tim and Glenn were sharing a lot of their experiences about actual ghost encounters. Glenn's had more to do with the afterlife, really getting communication back from family members, whereas Tim's were things that are people or anomalies that he had no idea who they were or what they were doing there. And you had brought something up, and I'm gonna pull the quote directly out of the email here because I thought it was well written. You wrote to me that you hovered on the thought of afterlife versus ghost, and my thoughts, as in yours, Dan, were after looking at the subject, is afterlife doesn't necessarily include any interaction with the living, where a ghost technically has to be seen by the living. You really went into talk about residual versus intelligent hauntings, the playback of energy versus active communication. I thought that was an interesting concept, and I thought it was, again, a nice build off of that episode. I want to have you readdress that today and kind of explain a little bit about what you meant by that and what that distinction is between the two from your
Okay,
perspective.
so all this is my opinion, all right? I'm not here to convince anybody of nothing. Whether you believe or not, I don't care because it's not going to change how I look at it, what I do, whatever. That is,
Hmm.
it's and what goes hand in hand with that is experiences are very personal for everybody. So your perception of what's going on, I think, is largely influenced by everything that has taken you to that point. Everything you've watched, read, encountered, smelled, whatever. It's all bringing you to this point, formulating your opinion at that time. So, like, here's what you want to be real careful of. And I'll answer your question directly, but I go off on these tangents. What you have to be careful of is if you get a case where you're going into a private residence and the lead statement from everybody that lives there is, my aunt, my mom, my sister, whatever, just passed on, and I know that they came back to try to communicate with me. Whether you believe it or not, as an investigator, why would you ever want to take that away from anybody? It's providing them comfort. It's whether you don't think there's any credence to it at all, looking at all the evidence, it's brought that person where they need to be to cope with that loss. Or they're in a stressful time and they think their grandfather, their grandmother came back to give them advice, to comfort them, whatever. Why on earth would any human being ever want to take that thought away from somebody? You just kind of shake your head and go, hey, you know what? That's awesome. If you believe that, it looks like it's giving you strength. It looks like it's what you needed. Man, I'm envious. I wish I would have had that experience. Is it paranormal? I don't know. But you have to factor in that type of reaction to things too. So, dovetailing onto that, with your direct question was, a lot of people will use terms interchangeably, and they're really not. Ghosts and hauntings are very different from afterlife. It's kind of what I was
Hmm.
trying to explain to you is afterlife, we don't know. Maybe they're not interacting in this dimension, on this plane of existence, whatever, but there is an afterlife. To be a haunted place, a live human being has to see, hear, smell. There has to be something that gets their attention. It's that age old thing, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? If it's if there's a ghost there that doesn't interact with the living, can you call it haunted? Well, technically no, because you're not perceiving anything. So the afterlife is not one is not evidence of the other, and one is not used interchangeably with the other, I don't think. Like a residual haunt and an intelligent haunt, right? If you watch the same movie over and over again, the fields of Gettysburg historically come into mind, where it's kind of the same thing. It's soldiers marching through the woods, and that's what the majority of people see. Now, if Mr. Phillips sits down and
Hmm.
tells me he's had a conversation with Abe Lincoln for a half hour, he's interacted with that. He's not watching a movie on replay. He's actually having give and take, and one is playing off the other. So those two terms also are not interchangeable whatsoever. But all of them are not necessarily proof of the other. I don't think. Maybe that answered it. Maybe it didn't.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it does.
No, it
and we had a long conversation about that on our on this specific episode that Shane was talking about, right? And I don't think that you know, what's the best way to say it? Both things don't have to be, both things can be true without being connected to one another, right? Like they're not necessarily the exact same thing. I think I feel the same way as you do. I wanted to go back to the story that you were telling earlier. When you saw that figure that was blacker than the black that you saw, the lights come on, and it sounds like you almost immediately go into, I guess I would kind of call it, for lack of a better term, kind of
That's
debunking
exactly
mode, right?
what you
Like,
do.
hey, what could
Yep.
that be? Right? Exactly, right? So what could that be, right? So obviously you're there, you're recording, you have cameras. Everybody that watches, these ghost shows know that there's all different sorts of technology that's used, right? There's, you use recorders to do EVPs. You've got, infrared, you've got the FLIR cameras, EVP detectors, REM pods, all these different types of things. Are there pieces of technology that you use in real life doing actual investigations that maybe we don't see on the TV shows? And are there some things that are on the TV shows that you look at and go, that's kind of horse crap, I would never use that?
That's a good question. So let's just talk for a minute on back to the TV shows, right? If if you're looking into this subject, I mean, there's no doubt that that a lot of people have some hate or some dislike or some whatever for Zach Baggins, for instance. They're like, oh, this show,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I kid you not, go back and look at it. There's an episode where he farts on camera and they put the thermal imager up to it. Right? So there's this, I laughed, who wouldn't? So there's this aspect of it's all for show, it's all entertainment, it's all whatever. But I will tell you that, with Zach's show and Jason Haas show, there's those are very two different camps, right? The difference is that Zach and his crew, I think they honestly believe that in their minds, they've already decided there are ghosts, there are hauntings, there's good ghosts, there's bad ghosts, whatever. So if that's the case, why wouldn't the evidence that they're looking at in their minds immediately first thing be ghosts? They've already decided that they're real. So it's not a
Sure.
stretch for them to say, well, yeah, that's the ghost. Look, listen to this, watch this, that's the ghost. Is it bad? No, because that's what they do. They went out to find something in their minds, they found it, so now they're expanding on what they think they've already found. And maybe they have found it. I don't know. Taps was more evidentiary. Taps was more of like, Ghost Hunters was more of like, we need to do everything possible to throw this out. And that's one of the protocols that I like so much of, if you throw out so much stuff, because it could be, you may be throwing out great evidence, really good evidence, but it could be something else. So you got to throw it out, right? Because all these people online, whatever, they're going to tell you that you're wrong and no one's going to take it seriously. So if it can be disproven, it really needs to be thrown out for your own sanity. Now, once you do that, anything that's left over is evidence of a haunting, right? Because you've done everything you can do to disprove it, and that piece of evidence still remains. That's evidence of a haunting. It doesn't make it any more right or wrong as what Ghost Adventures does, being convinced that it is a haunting. It's just two sides of the same coin. It's two different ways of going about it. And I will also say this, Ghost Adventures wasn't my favorite thing to watch. Of course I watched it. You got to take in everything, right? If you're going to sit down and watch the Kardashians or Ghost Adventures, I'll take Ghost Adventures every day. But
Oh yeah.
the debt that everybody owes to Ghost Adventures is they brought that subject along. Ghost Hunters kicked open the door for the modern day. Ghost Adventures made sure that door stayed open. When Discovery Plus first started streaming their episodes, it was entirely paranormal based. All the shows, the Holzer Files, the you name it, it was on Discovery Plus. That's because Ghost Adventures carried that torch. So good or bad, it left it on the forefront, and it kept blazing trails. It kept all these shows from being canceled too early. It kept the interest there. To Ghost Brothers, to Ozzy Osbourne sitting down with Jack doing his shows. I think that's all as a direct result for what Ghost Adventures was able to do. So it's just hard, it's hard to, you can't really take sides, and one side isn't right and one side's not wrong. It's just two different angles of approach that they do. Each one of them are great, and each one of them we're indebted to for different reasons.
We're talking a lot about scripted television shows here, and Dan, I feel like you're almost scripting this interview for me because you keep leading me into my next point really well. When we started this, we actually called the show Conspiracy Realist. That's the website, conspiracyrealist.com. We pivoted to cocktails and conspiracies largely because it was catchier, and it made a lot more sense for a show. But the idea was to do exactly what you said, is to come down the middle and to hear both sides. And so I really love that that's the perspective you come into this with, from the ghost hunting aspect of it too. Like, you're walking into an abandoned house, an abandoned property, or a place where people are living, and you're not coming in with any preconceived notions. And I think that is so important. The idea that you're willing to watch shows that you're just kind of not into, maybe you don't really believe what they're doing, but you want to understand that perspective. It's something that, in the broader scheme of conspiracy, we often lose. We lose sight of the idea that a little bit can be true from everywhere. I talk about this in business a lot too, right? Sometimes people don't want to hear the other side. They don't want to hear the complaints, right? And I would argue that the reason you do is so that you know how to address them. If somebody is saying something and you don't agree with that person, you want to understand what their perspective is, because sometimes that can help kind of shift your opinion on, well, what am I looking at and why am I looking at it this way and they're looking at it another way. So I really wanted to point that out, though, because I think what you're saying really speaks to the authenticity of who you are, and really to the overall theme of what we try to do here. And what we've been trying to do is just navigate this weird world where none of us really do have the answers. I'm curious, how does this interest and perhaps even this take kind of impact either your personal life or your afterlife ghost hunting professional life outside of your real work? Is the internet community is always, they hate everybody, they hate everything. So ignoring them. But when you're talking to folks that you're working with while you're going ghost hunting, or you're talking to people in your real life, you're coming from a very pragmatic point of view. Does that sway people one way or another? Do the ghost hunter people you're working with kind of look at you like, oh, this guy's going to kind of, pee in our soup, for example? Or the people that, you interact with in your real life that maybe don't buy into this, like, oh, here he goes again with this kind of wild stuff. Is that a factor at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is it less of a factor now? Yeah. But wow, we're so going to run out of time. So
Don't worry about the clock. I
so
got that.
I will tell you this, and I'll just throw this out there. In my professional life, it's one of the few things that every day, at any point of the day, night, whatever, I'm there at the moment of death, right? Being with the fire department, you're there for a lot of it. You're there when it just happens. You're there right before it happens. You're there as it happens. And while it never impeded my job or me carrying out my duties or whatever, you kind of took note. If you're working on a patient that you really knew was not going to have a good outcome. I mean, just like anything else, you do something long enough, you know, right? You get proficient. I'd like to think that after 30 years, that proficiency set in. But you have that back of your mind where you're like, you know what? I'm watching our equipment, our cardiac monitor or whatever. I'm watching this person actually and actively leave this plane of existence. You do kind of like just look for a second. Am I seeing anything weird? And whatever. Now, again, did this take away from our job and what we were doing? No. But it added a level of awareness, at least in me, and then with some of my crew. After you always debrief the call, right? If it's a fire, if it's a whatever, you talk about it. What could we have done better? What was good? What a lot of the time, the people that you work with are like, yeah, I don't believe in any of this crap. But I'll tell you, there was this one time, and it's the best paranormal story you ever heard, but they're not willing to entertain it's paranormal. On my shifts, in my stations, whatever, that at least, whether they believed it or not, they at least also had awareness. You know, they would say to me at different levels in my career, hey, Cap, did you see that weird glow up in the corner of the room? Or did it look like when we were cutting that car up? Did you get this weird feeling? Was it just me? It's kind of cool because, again, it wasn't influenced on what we were doing or the proficiency of it, but it kind of was, hey, we did kind of notice something like this that I would have just thought was it's because it's 2 in the morning or because I was focused on something else. But I did kind of sense this over here or whatever. Um, and then, at the same time, they're like, what is this crazy clown doing? He needs to focus in on his job and all that. They didn't want to entertain that maybe a first responder or somebody who's coming into their house or working on their loved one or whatever might have these beliefs. So it was kind of a fine line to walk. And it was something that was kind of real personal that maybe if you've been together long enough, you'd share with your crew and you'd get those stories from their perception and stuff. And that also led me to believe that everyone can see the same thing and and really think it was something else.
Perceive it
Absolutely.
differently. Yeah.
Almost 100% of the time.
That's fascinating. You actually just answered the next question that I had for you was have you ever had an experience while being a first responder? And that's absolutely fascinating. And I think that lends credence really to the paranormal world, right? Because in those specific circumstances, you're not investigating some haunted house. You're in a real life, everyday experience that anybody, any even bystander, right, could potentially be involved in. And while it may not be necessarily quote unquote hard evidence that you're capturing, it's an experience and you can't discount someone's experience. So I think that's really unique. I think it's absolutely fascinating. That is
And
awesome.
I'll tell you that you talk to police officers, nurses, or whatever, really the majority of those people are going to say, oh yeah, I saw a ghost in the back hallway by the linen cart, or I don't think it was a ghost, but there was this weird thing. A lot of first responders, medical, what they're gonna have their stories. They might be afraid of ridicule to say them. They may not want to entertain those
Yeah.
stories themselves, but they've got them. 100% they've got them. And it's pretty powerful. You know what I mean? It's sad in a way that that's a lot of guilt and a lot to handle. If you've seen something that you convinced it scared the hell out of you, and it makes you think about, are we prolonging people's lives? Is this all done through the chemistry? We've given these drugs, so of course their heart's beating or whatever. It's powerful to not be able to talk through that stress as a first responder of because you're afraid of ridicule. You're not a machine. Many of my colleagues, many of myself, I've had times where I'm like, I got to stop doing this. And that changes your perspective on how you see things also. As a kid, I was baptized and went through all that. By the time I spent 30 years in the fire department, my belief system changed altogether. And it changed because I had to change it to do my job. You can only hold so many dead kids, watch their lives burn up, watch people shoot, stab each other, whatever. For me, I'm have to be like, you know what? This is random. I can't think that there's an entity, an alien, or a god doing this on purpose. This is random and things happen, and I could be right or wrong, but that's the mode I needed to be in to keep going and doing it every day. Best job in the world, never would have done anything else. If everyone could be a fireman, they'd do it. Trust me. It's a great thing. But it does change you. And I tried to focus some of that too in on the investigation side of me. Maybe there's something I can say, do, find, or whatever that will bring comfort to future brothers and sisters doing this job. Or maybe it'll make it okay for them to come back to the station, come back to the firehouse and say, this is weird shit. We need to figure it out. Because I can't sleep. I'm mad at my husband when I get home, mad at my wife, my kids. Maybe something that we've talked about when I was their boss. Now their future bosses coming up. Maybe they're opening that door to not have that stress consume them in the firehouse and consume them. It happens. It happens. The burnout from all this death and everything is immense, and sorrow. So it's kind of all connected. If you can maybe make sense of the death, it maybe will help you do your job better. And one of the other things that you had said that I thought was interesting is you said that, when you respond to a call, your focus is here. I think that helped me because has anyone ever told either one of you, if you want to remember something, focus in on something else? Because if you think about it too much, you're not going to remember it. If you're putting together a model or making a lasagna or whatever, it's going to pop right into your head. So if you're not focusing in on something, I think your perception allows you to see different things because you're not focusing on it. So the fact that we were so task oriented kind of left that part of our brain open to perceive things differently. So I think that was actually part of the deal is you don't focus on something and you're all of a sudden you're more aware of it.
I think that's a great point. We play Xbox. We play a specific game called PUBG, which is a first-person shooter. And one of our friends that always plays with us, who thinks he could snipe, he actually sucks at it, was playing with us the other night, and he wasn't in the chat with us. He was preoccupied, and it was the best that he ever played in years.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced it's because he wasn't so laser-focused on it. Make sense of that what you will.
Absolutely.
Kind of a joking but very valid point. I want to go back to the nitty-gritty of an investigation and something specifically, a method that's been, I don't want to call it tried and true because I've never done it, but a method that everybody knows about, EVPs, right? Disembodied voices being captured on voice recorders. Do you utilize that during your investigations? I remember back when I was a kid, I wasn't even 18 yet, I worked at Staples, and some kid a little bit older than me came in to buy a voice recorder, and this is like 2007, 2008, right? Like, people aren't really using voice recorders, especially young people like me at that point in time, and I'm like, dude, are you capturing EVPs? And he was like, yeah, and I'm like, you gotta come back and tell me about it. But I wanted to ask you about that because, and I hate to keep going back to the shows, but it's
Really what we know. This is
experience that I have, right? Exactly. It's what I know. So oftentimes you'll see on these shows, they'll capture an EVP, they'll play the EVP when they are breaking down the footage, and initially I'll hear either nothing or I'll hear something that is just, okay, I hear something, I can't make out what it is. And as soon as they tell you on the TV show what they hear,
unhear it.
now you hear it, which is some kind of phenomenon, right? I'm sure there is some technical, scientific phenomenon term for that. Don't know what it is. What are your experience with EVPs? And I'm sure you've been investigating for a long time. I'm sure you've had some that are fantastic. I'm sure you've had some that are kind of like, I don't really know what that is. But just if you could kind of talk to the sensationalization of what we see on television with EVPs versus how you utilize them and interpret them in real life.
Sure. So I'm not a huge fan of EVPs for a few different reasons. Number one, and kind of like building on the point that you made, when you watch these shows, they are removing background noise. They're isolating the sound clip. They're doing a lot of things, right? Because they have to. It's a TV show. They have to do that. I think if you have to alter the clip in any way to get people to hear what you're hearing, you got to throw that out. If you have to alter the EVP clip in any way, enhance it, make it louder, take out the fan noise in the back, whatever. It's not an EVP because you're having to mess with it to hear it. I also, there's a logical side of me that knows anatomy and physiology saying the way you make a voice is it's reverberations of ambient air in your vocal cords. If these people are spiritual, if or spirits, and they're not in physical form, you don't have the structure and the anatomy to make a sound. So what is it?
Mm-hmm.
And there may be a simple answer to that. The simple answer might be because they're ghosts and they can do anything. They can fly. They can look like
Right.
underdog. They can, you know, whatever. Maybe that's the answer. But in my brain, it's like I just I can't see the logic in it, and so maybe it's a prejudice on my point because I don't like that evidence. So let somebody else listen to it. I'll listen to it all day long and tell you what I think, but I personally don't like that just for those reasons. Um, and again, you've done probably what the majority of people that watch these shows should do. When they're doing their evidence review or presenting it to the client, close your eyes and cover them up and listen to the recording. If you come away with the exact thing that they're putting on the subtitles that they heard, that's probably an EVP. But I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, you're like, what? I don't even hear the voice.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, we think they're saying, and they'll put it up. You're like, oh, of course, yeah, I hear that. I can't unhear that now. But you
Right.
needed that shove. Evidence that needs a shove is not evidence because it's just going to be dismissed. And again, that's why I try not to influence people or sit there and argue with them that there's ghosts or not ghosts. You're going to believe what you're going to believe, and so am I. And not any bit of evidence I can give you is going to change that because everyone has the ability to say, I think it's faked. Prove to me that prove it. Mr. Phillips, when you were talking about your story, you were laying on the couch, right? You said, I wasn't awake. Prove it. Prove to me you weren't asleep and you didn't hear that. Prove it. You can't because in your perception, this is the way it happened. You're not wrong. This is how you lived through that situation. I'm in no position to tell you you're wrong. But I am in a position to say, dude, you very possible you could have been asleep and not known it. Therefore, you got to throw it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's why I don't. It's going to take something extremely bombastic to ever. It's like the flying saucer landing on the White House lawn. It's finding a Sasquatch body. Ghosts, you're not. If I came to you with the best evidence you've ever seen, the majority of the people out there, our peers, everybody's going, I don't think so. I think it's fake. Could be this, could be
Right.
that. Could be the AC unit kicking on and they didn't happen to not clean out that vent in 4 years, so it blew a dust cloud and it hit the moonbeam coming through the window and it made this. And I can't tell them they're wrong because you know what? Yeah, all that's possible. So we're not
Perfect confluence of
exactly.
events.
It doesn't make somebody right or wrong. It's their perception. And again, if it brings you comfort, if your kids are terrified of ghosts because they've seen a scary movie or whatever, but they have this thought that, well, hey, maybe that could be my dog that passed away, and it brings them comfort. Who cares? I'm not ever going to tell somebody they're wrong, and nobody should. It's bringing comfort to a situation. And I think that's maybe the folklore that's lost in these modern times. Is a lot of these stories used to have a purpose. Don't go by the river. Don't go in abandoned structures alone. Don't play with refrigerators. Don't. That folklore played its part, and the stories remain, and the lessons that they taught have gone away. And I think that's a lot of the explanation for paranormal activity now. And folklore is the stories remain, the morals of the stories went away because we don't live in huts anymore and we don't travel mainly by horseback and we don't use candlelight and whatever. That's gone away, but the stories remain, and that kind of There's this mystique that it's something that it never was. So again, this is just my thoughts. You could be like, I'm going to delete this episode because this guy's a moron.
Dude,
You
listen.
know, Dan, I was going to say the opposite, actually.
Look, for anybody listening and not watching, I've had a smile from ear to ear the whole episode because Dan, everything you're saying is literally warming my heart because we don't know each other at all. This is the first real life conversation we've ever had, and so you're so based and pragmatic, and the way that you go about your investigations is exactly the way that I believe it should be done and what I would do if I was out there doing it. So, man, oh man, we're gonna have you back.
So why aren't you doing it?
Because I don't have a good answer for it. I don't know. I don't have a good answer as to why I'm not. I really should. And I tell you what, this is certainly really this conversation might be the combo that pushes me to actually go out and do it.
Go out, but don't go out and find a group. Just do it. You probably hang out with people that you talk about this subject with, right? So find 2 or 3 of those people and be like, hey, guess what?
I got an idiot right here that'll do it with me.
Oh, well, we'll see.
Kind of.
Well, what have
You've
I
been a
said
little
about some of these
wishy-washy.
ghost
But you know what?
You'll do
experiences?
it.
It'll
You'll
shed
do it.
My
it'll
brothers will
shed
do it.
so much light on some of the questions you have now, even if you're not doing it to TV specs or whatever, going out and just fumbling through it and doing what you want to do, taking pictures, doing recordings the way you want it, anything. It's going to shed so much light on the subjects that you talk about here that it's going to do nothing but good for you because you don't have that perspective. So go out and do it. Collect your own evidence. See what it's like. And then say, you know what? I've done this and I think it's bullshit. Or say, you know what? I've done this and I think they're right. And, dude, I'll tell you. And the whole reason why I looked for a group to begin with, it's so much fun. I saw it on TV, obviously, like everybody else. And I'm like, I don't know why I can't do this. How do I do it? And I did a web search and found teams and they liked me and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a Comic-Con or whatever. There's nothing in the world like it. Nothing. You've got to do it once because it's so unique. You've got to experience it for yourself in those settings, in the dark, in the cold, whatever. You've got to experience it. You can't get that experience any other way. My advice, do it. Fumble your way through it, whatever. Just do it, have a good time, and get that experience. You're the exact dude that needs to do stuff like that.
I'm in, dude.
Dan, I think a lot of what you said today is very profound. Even outside of the idea of ghost hunting and the paranormal, there's a lot of things that you touched on that I think could be applied to life in general. The idea of coming into any situation without a preconceived notion, listening to both sides of it, the idea of creating a level of comfort with the people you work with so that they feel open enough to share some of these vulnerable, deeper, darker moments, especially in the fields that you're in, right? First responders, nurses, doctors, like when you're in these situations where you're getting these experiences that are weighing on you, creating the environment to really be able to let those out so it doesn't eat you away and burn you out. There's so much to unpack from this hour today, that again, within the paranormal and without it. And I mean, speaking on behalf of Tim, I don't think we could thank you enough because beyond the expectations that you blew out of the water for Tim, I think just you've kind of set the bar here just from a very realistic standpoint, all the things that you can kind of take away from this. So seriously, thank you for reaching out. Honestly, it's one of those things that, again, we spoke about this a little offline. You see views pop up on all these videos. Everyone out there right now is liking, sharing, and subscribing, and they're commenting below. But to actually hear from somebody face to face that has kind of been with us on this journey is cool. It's rewarding, and it tells us, we aren't just talking to each other in an echo chamber here and there. There are people that are kind of getting this. And you had said I was laughing at one of your emails. You're like, I'm always arguing with you guys, talking back to my TV or whatever it was. So it's cool to be able to actually have that banter for real.
No, and you know what? Honestly, thank you guys for doing the show because you're bringing an awareness level to it. You're doing your part to move it forward in a positive manner, just to get people talking about it. And that's a pretty bold step. Even today, we're 40 and things, and the subject is more acceptable. It's still a pretty bold step. I'm sure you guys have a professional life where at some point you're like, I don't know if we should do this or not because I don't know. So thank you for doing that, and the pleasure was all mine, and I think that now we should probably talk about my appearance fee.
You know what? We'll get you a cut into the revenue from all the money that our sponsors have brought us so far, which is one of those.
Hey, a
Bagel.
cut of nothing is a cut.
Mostly self-sponsored at this point. Right, exactly. There's gonna come a time, and I don't want to put a number on it. Maybe when we had 100,000 subscribers, where I think we're gonna take this show on the road somewhere and try to make a derivative of it. Still do the podcast, but maybe get to go to a lot of some of these sites that we've talked about and do some recordings on that. And then I think you're gonna be playing host to one of those.
Come here.
It's
Come here.
it's the natural
God, I would
next
love to.
progression, but I think it'd be so much
There's
fun to
so
do.
many things, so many aspects to the Southwest, but Arizona. The haunted alone. Are flying saucer sightings always among the top in the nation for states? We've got Sasquatch sightings here. We've had chupacabra sight. Dude, it's like Jersey. It's like Jersey, right? You got the snow, you got beaches. We got
Yep.
everything here. It's just
Yep.
better than Jersey. That's all.
That's awesome.
But come,
Well, it's a lot of
Come.
things are better than Jersey. at
come
this point.
visit. We'll hang out. It'll be a good time.
Thank
Please.
you. I'm just letting you know that this is being recorded and it's going to be published live, so you can't now retract this from us
And
later.
you will
on.
be taken up on that offer at some
You
point.
will be
in the
taken up on
future.
the offer now.
100%, my
Come.
friend.
It's a standing offer.
Awesome.
Appreciate that. Well, to everyone out there that has watched or listened, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, again, please remember to like and subscribe, share it with a friend, comment below. We try to respond to all of them. Dan, is there anywhere on the internet that you want people to reach you at, or any plugs you want to kind of throw in for your
No,
chapter of Taps?
number one, that the chapter, it's not, again, being a TAPS isn't really a thing anymore, and it's changed, and you move on, and you don't need that good housekeeping seal of approval. What I would say is, if anyone has questions or concerns, reach out to you guys. Ask your questions. At least look to everyone watching. These guys are putting it out there. Utilize them. There's a lot of ways they can help and direct you or whatever, but don't keep it inside. Ask these guys. Do that. Reach out to Shane. Reach out to Mr. Phillips. They'll help. I'm pretty sure they'll help and do whatever they can to guide you and just to listen. Sometimes you just want somebody to listen.
We love stories.
Contact you guys.
Yeah. You nailed it. Yeah. You know where to find us, folks. Conspiracyrealist.com, cocktailsconspiracies.com. Go to the same place. So by all means, please do that. We're always willing to hear some new stories here. Mr. Phillips, any parting words? I can imagine you're feeling pretty hyped up right now.
Listen, my mind is racing. We often say this, that we need to have somebody back, or that this conversation could go for 10 hours. And we do mean it 100%, but a bit of an extra emphasis on those words. I could go literally all night long and continue to have a conversation. So, Dan, I can't thank you enough. You will be back with us. We didn't even scratch the surface.
Correct.
Of things that I wanted to
Yeah.
talk. I mean, we had a fantastic conversation, but we didn't scratch the surface. So, to be continued. Immediate friend of the show, you'll be back. We're going to keep this conversation going, and I can't wait to see where this friendship, what it evolves into. So, thank you, my friend.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your time.
All right. Until next time, everybody.